Then we will move to item B, which is transportation vehicle replacement report and bus bids. Mr. Gorder.
I asked, he's going to be out there at 4 o'clock tomorrow. If I had noticed that sooner, I would have asked him to leave. We talked at the finance committee, so I don't know how much we're actually going to be looking at. Can everybody see that, or do you want me to pull it up just a little bit more? I do have to have those. We done with the presentation? What we're asking, we went out for bus bids here probably about a month ago, and one of the reasons we did that, we wanted to get started preparing for next year already. And you know, looking at some of the savings that we're seeing with energy this year, along with we have not spent our construction budget. We've kind of held on to that, you know, obviously looking to see where budget items go. We've not spent, we have one bus to purchase yet this year, so those two equate to about $300,000, along with some curriculum that we will not be purchasing this year that we'll be looking at next year. So what I've put together is a proposal to buy out from 1 to 4 buses. You can see the different costs regarding those buses and those purchases. What it would do if we were able to purchase buses this year would mean next year the budget is built with 3 buses in that, so those dollar amounts in a sense become freed up for next year's budget, so that we got a lot of unknowns yet that are sitting out there, and we want to have the flexibility to deal with those issues. And if for some reason that we don't purchase those buses next year, those dollars could be used for whether it's curriculum purchases that we didn't buy this year, construction projects we put off this year, or any other projects that we have sitting out there. We do know at some point in time we'll be looking at salary and fringe increases for our staff, so we want to have that flexibility. We don't know where student numbers are going. You've heard it all, so I don't know that I need to explain it all. I should just focus on the buses. But you have 2 different proposals with this the biggest significant difference between these proposals, and we're looking for a bus with a 10-year warranty. We're keeping our buses up to 12 years, possibly longer depending on the body. The body is really the deciding factor as to how long we're going to keep the bus because of basically the rust issues that we're having with them. So we're looking at 10 to 12 years if we can get a warranty for 10 years on the chassis, the body, and the chassis and the drivetrain. As we push those years out into 7, 8, 9, 10, or even earlier, it could save us considerable amount of dollars that we spend on buses. A warranty costs about $3,800. The difference between Nelson and Midstate is this is for the chassis only. This includes the power drive. In order to upgrade this, and Nelson did not give us a firm cost on what that warranty would cost us. They did say it would be probably approximately the same cost as Midstate. So we're kind of operating under the assumption that these numbers are going to be the same. Having said that, when we're taking a look at the difference, my recommendation, you know, on the 4 buses, if that's what we would do, and I'm not asking for approval tonight, that we would go with the internationals. Our mechanics are comfortable with internationals. They do all their training on internationals. Doesn't mean that they can't work on the Nelson, but the more continuity and consistent we have with the types of buses, it does benefit us in maintaining supplies, parts, and things like that, and also on training. Not to say if the dollars weren't significantly different that we wouldn't look at purchasing Nelson, because I believe that's what we did last year too. So what is the master plan here? The master plan really would be to purchase 4 buses for next year. Again, we have 1 in the budget this year, so really technically we're only purchasing those 3 for next year at about $272,370. And then again, that would put us in a better shape for next year. How do we, one of the issues is we want to get those buses here as soon as possible to get them on the road so that those buses are purchased and used in the current fiscal year. So if we order those buses or give the okay by February 28th, we're good to go. Okay, and I think I could get a day or 2 after that, but anytime after that, not only are the prices not guaranteed, but it puts us out further from getting those buses. So If you don't feel comfortable making a decision tonight, what I would recommend that is if we have that board retreat, if we could do a meeting, I think it's Wednesday, next Wednesday?
You're talking about policy, I mean the handbook.
Handbook committee.
Yeah, not the retreat.
Yeah. If we could meet for 15 or 20 minutes before that, I think that would be the best thing to do. Give you an opportunity to think about this. I'm not going to feel any better. Really, it's when we're estimating year-end budgets and where we're going to be on June 30th, I like to go through that process 2 or 3 times. But as we were talking in the Finance Committee, I feel pretty good about that number, and I think we're going to reach that. But I don't want to set myself up or Mrs. Zardi up for us being over either. So what I would say is what I'd ask you to consider for this year and this year only, if there's flexibility that, possibly if we had to go 100, 150,000 in the fund balance this year to cover those costs. If there was a year that we needed to spend all the dollars that are allocated, this is the year, because we want to receive as much state aid as possible, so that spending that 150 would also give us additional dollars next year, because state aid the following year is based on what you expend this current year.
And ideally, that would be based on buying the total of 4 buses, correct?
Yeah, ideally we'd like to see the purchase of 4. 1 is already in the budget for this year. It would be 3 buses that we'd be looking for next year. And again, if we had issues with the budget, we could choose to say, we're not going to buy those buses, we're going to reallocate that money for other areas. We may purchase those budgets and then say, hey, you know what, next year we're ahead of schedule, we wouldn't have to purchase buses the following year. It seems to me, given these uncertainties, that we want to be thinking about where we're going, not only this year, but also next year.
Is international also your recommendation?
International is our recommendation. There's a lot of other information I'd like to take time in here, and it really has nothing to do with the bus bid, but it has to do, there are 2 separate questions asked at different times. How long do we keep our buses? How many miles do we put on our buses? What are our costs associated with those buses? And it's probably something, Gary, that you've talked about at some point in time within your 30 years, once or twice, but with this change in the board, I don't think we've really taken a real close look at those other things. And contained in this handout or packet is a lot of different information on buses and mileage and what other districts are doing, what our costs. For instance, not including the cost of purchasing new buses, we're seeing on average over the last 10 years a 10% increase in our costs associated with transportation.
What's our fleet now? 50?
We have 40 on the route with I think around 13 to 15 that are used as spares.
Okay. Now, over the years, if you're going to go those 30 years, I can tell you this, that and I've talked with Jerry on this, that they have always recommended 3 buses at least, and this would be the 3, kind of counting it, which the 1 would be included in next year's budget. That 3 was the standard. In our fleet, as far as I'm concerned, that fleet has always run good. We haven't had many breakdowns that I'm aware of to bring an issue where you wouldn't want to replenish your fleet by at least 3.
Right. And purchasing buses is no different than curriculum or doing maintenance on your buildings. You either pay now or you pay later, and typically if you think you're going to put this off for 2 or 3 years, not only are you going to have issues with the buses, but it is a safety issue in the end.
Yep.
You want the best buses on the road at all times.
Especially in this district, as big as we are.
And you did go through the fact that they do include a 10-year warranty from Midstate, which is included in your bid price that you have on the list,
over
right?
here on the very right.
So the total cost for the 4 buses would be $363,160.
Yes. We also need to purchase some cameras and then radio with antennas, and you can see the individual costs for them, but that's not associated with the bus, and whether we got those this year or next year, we would take care of it. And again, I'm not too concerned about those costs. that's really the major cost. This is more that you know that there are additional costs for the bus.
Looking at the warranty, when I look at the target life repair costs, they seem to still accrue repair costs. Is there a deductible or something that the...
Where are you?
What I'm looking at is we've got the 10-year warranty quote at $93,071 for a mid-state. When I look at the year-to-year, taking, for instance, let's go bus number 57, which went into service in the year 2002. Well, maybe that's not a good example because it's micro. Let me go to bus number 10, went into service 2002. It's been in service for 10 years. 65-passenger bus. It has 115,000 miles on it. It's averaging 88,000 miles a year. It was purchased in December of '01. Its total amount of labor and costs are $33,991.24. Last year it was $4,136. So it accrued roughly $29,000 worth of labor and parts in the first 10 years of its service.
Right.
Are those deductibles, or why are we incurring, if we have this warranty, why are we
Not
incurring?
all of our buses have warranties. This is relatively new that we started doing.
Oh, okay.
So it's
So
not
that's
something that
fine.
we were probably doing in 2000, 2001, purchasing a 10-year warranty. And also you need, the warranties change, depending on what the manufacturer is doing, the incentives they're trying to get out there. So
Okay.
that's probably the biggest reason. And I'm not sure of the year of the warranty, if it was a standard 3-year, 30,000, that's typically what you get on a car, or if it was 1 year or 5 years.
So, but we did get a warranty last year.
On our buses, yes.
So when I look at last year's, and this may just be something to get clarification on, but
Yeah.
it does look like we spent, for instance, bus number 11, which went into service in 2012, it has, it's been in service for 6 months and has 3,800 miles on it, but it's already incurred $2,100 worth of parts and labor.
Yeah, I would have to look at what those costs are if that was damage from, whether that's a vehicle accident, what it
Deer
is.
running into it.
Yeah.
Sure.
We had deer running into it, so some of those costs we already need back. You have your annual maintenance fees. If you look at a bus, I think it's every 3 to 4 years you're putting brakes on in the vehicle. And I think it's 8 years it's brakes again and tires. So there's just a lot of different costs associated with it.
I think it's important to know that when we run these buses, how much wear and tear they get, but when we take the 93,071 and we take it out over what we anticipate the average life of our buses is, which is 130,000 miles, it's costing us $1.40 a mile without fuel and any other costs just to operate those buses. They're very expensive. But
Our transportation is when we have the annual meeting and we look at comparative costs, our transportation costs are the highest in the area, and that's not because we're not doing something other districts are not doing it. It's because we're probably, and again, I don't know exactly, but about the 5th largest landmass district in the state of Wisconsin. Our buses travel many, many miles.
I think at one time, Greg, that figure was second.
Yeah.
Second?
That's what I remember, second.
I don't think we're second anymore.
Some of those districts up north have consolidated their days.
I was at one time.
Consolidations.
I go back a few years. 1, 2. Milwaukee, I think was one. Milwaukee.
It's probably a good or bad time. It really doesn't regarding bus days, but whether it's worrying about the weather in the morning, like we're thinking about tomorrow, or the rest of the week. My day is done and Jeff's day is done when all the kids are home.
Exactly.
There's a good feeling that all of our kids got home safe.
Right.
And get to school safe. That's one element that, knock on wood, we haven't had to worry about usually, other than typically on snow days, that those things impact. But Transportation's a big deal. It's something that we can't afford not to take care of and stay current on it, because again, you can wait 2 or 3 years, but then 2 or 3 years you're going to have issues with the bodies, and your maintenance costs are going to go up, and then instead of purchasing 3 ahead of time, you might be looking at trying to find money to purchase 9 to 12 buses to replace the ones that are. And that's when the number gets to be unbearable, when you have to purchase 9 to 12 buses.
And you're over a million.
Right.
It does say here, Greg, that warranty covers body and major engine components and chassis. So I imagine it's like your car. The warranty doesn't cover those little things that you're constantly, the continual oil change, the maintenance.
It's not going to cover oil changes, tires.
Right, so
different things like that.
I guess when you look at that per year, that's probably easily eaten up with $3,000, $4,000 besides a warranty. Easily.
Awful precious cargo on those buses.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt at all.
And the bus drivers have a pretty difficult job keeping the students safe. And I think the last thing we want them to be worried about is that they're driving a bus that's substandard and not prepared to do the job for them. So.
Jerry's concern is trying to infiltrate our budget with more money, and it's not an issue that I haven't brought up over the years about what we're paying for buses, considering putting that into some other facet of our immense budget train that we're on, except for the fact that, like I said earlier, when you purchase these 3 or 4 buses, in my mind, our fleet has always run that way, Greg. Very few incidences of people being injured, or like you said, picking them up and getting them home safely. Number 1 issue. And as many miles, if you calculated how many miles we put on with all those buses in a day, it's immense. And hopefully, it stays that way. But you never know.
I would appreciate if you had specific questions regarding all that other information, if you could call me, and then we could sit down and talk. I would anticipate you want to spend some time, talking about this, but I know you could spend hours talking about this, and the information certainly isn't all the information you possibly could have.
Are we able to next Wednesday have enough of us here to at least discuss that and approve if we so choose?
What's next?
It would be Wednesday policy handbook night.
So the 22nd?
Yes.
I thought,
20.
no, the handbook is the 29th.
Is that a Wednesday?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's talking next week Wednesday, not this Wednesday.
So they're talking
It would be
about
prior
before
to
the
that
staff
meeting.
handbook committee meeting, probably at 5 o'clock.
Would we have a quorum that would be able to be present? I know I'm out of town.
I'm out of town.
And this is to approve the purchase of 4 buses.
Or if...
Whatever, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
or not.
I'm just
Hoping,
wondering,
but
are people really going to have that many questions that it can't be
Right.
decided tonight?
Well, that
I
was
think
my...
most of the questions I had were answered with the
Yeah, point in asking that. I'm comfortable with this too, if we want to move forward.
Seems like it's a regular part of the rotation. We buy them now, we don't have to buy them next year.
It gives Mr. Gorder flexibility.
We may
with
have
the
to spend the
budget.
money.
If he can get these ordered now and on the road before the end of this school year, then he's got flexibility, correct, with the...
I'll make the motion.
And I'd just like to, Jerry just said something, I think that it allows us to spend money, but allows us to pick and choose how we spend that money. So at the end of the year, we're not in trying to get all these projects done, so it gives us a lot of flexibility here going into next year, so then we can really target the projects we want to do if that's the case. I would just ask, again, two things, if you would remember these, and of course, I wouldn't expect if things change, but one is that we understand, we could possibly go into fund balance at the end of this year, 100 to 150. If, I don't think that's the case, but I don't want you to be surprised and say, hey, what'd you do? I want you to know that we talked about that. And then two, that these dollars are coming to pay for this right now out of construction and to some degree the curriculum budgets, and that when we prioritize the spending of this money, if we don't get into a real pinch, that these dollars could be still earmarked for those specific areas for next year too, above and beyond what is normally budgeted.
I think we have to acknowledge that, and I'd go one step further. We have to acknowledge that in the times we're in right now, it's no longer not considered that at some point we may have to touch the fund balance to preserve curriculum and other programs. We don't want to, but it doesn't make sense to maintain a savings account and compromise what we're saving for.
And the only reason, again, the only reason we would go into the fund balance is we've done our estimates for the year end on February 1st. We will do that every month. And it's just really early to start looking at those things at this point in time, and some things can change. Do I expect them to change? What is my personal goal? 0. I don't want to touch the fund balance, but we just need to be talking about that when we're doing this early, so that nobody's sitting here saying, what are you doing?
Taken totally by surprise.
At the same time, Greg, and the rest of you, is that what you said about being able to be comfortable when the kids are home, they're picked up and they're back home. I think each one of us share that. There's a lot of miles out there.
Craig, do you need a motion for 4 buses or for 3? Is one bus already?
Yeah, we would need a motion for 4 bus considering the expenditures.
He already made a motion.
I did.
Yeah, Gary.
I'll second it.
All right.
Okay. We have a motion and a second then to approve the purchase of 4 buses at the costing that was provided on.
4 buses, we're targeting it to Mid-State, or is it 4 bus to the discretion? Are we targeting the approval to Mid-State, or is the approval at the discretion of, since the bids are so relatively close?
I think you said international, Jerry.
I was just looking at, international, which is
I
Mid-State.
think the motion should be specific.
It should be specific.
Yeah,
I think.
to international and
Yeah.
Mid-State, yeah.
Their recommendation was with that 10-year warranty,
Yep.
Gary, and that's through Mid-State, which is the international bus. Yeah, that's the supplier for the international bus. So that would be a total of, for this, of $363,160.
Approximately.
Approximately.
Yep.
Can we do a not to exceed that one?
Who do you give the new buses to, Greg? How do you work that out?
I let Jeff worry about that. That's not in my job description.
So we have a motion and a
End of
second
story.
then for the purchase of 4 buses with the approximate cost of $363,160. Is there any further discussion? We will do a roll call vote for this also.
Mary Ellen.
Yes.
Gary.
Yes.
Jerry.
Aye, yes.
Judy.
Yes.
Pam.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
And Deb.
Yes.
Thank you.